Alright, in this tutorial I'm going to show you what some basic data structures are in Java. I'm going to explain what a data structure is, and we're going to add to our example program that we did in the last tutorial. So for starters, hold down Control, Alt, and press T to bring up a terminal. Go to your NetBeans directory. And then bin, run NetBeans. And that should be loaded here in a minute. Alright, so here is the code that we did last time. We had the first program, which had created a couple person objects and printed out some information about them. And we had a person class defined to allow us to create person objects and define certain information about those objects. So in this tutorial, I'm going to discuss data structures. Now, a data structure is a object or a variable that holds one or more pieces of information. The data structures I'm going to describe are types that hold many pieces of information. So for starters, what if I wanted a single variable to hold a whole bunch of people objects, person objects? Instead of having to say person A equals new person, person B equals new person, and just storing them all in separate variables like this, we can use something called an array. So a simple array would be, you can say person and then put two brackets, space, people equals new person, brackets, semicolon, and then inside the brackets you want to put the number of people that this array can store. So what does this do? This creates a new array, that's what these brackets mean, of person objects with the name people, and this initializes that array to hold 20 person objects. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to just copy and paste a bunch of these here. Let's just say, you know, six people. I don't have to store 20 just because it holds 20. I can store anywhere from 0 up to 20 different person objects. So I'm going to say person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, person 5, person 6. And then this is going to be A, B, C, C, D, E, and F. And then the age, we'll just do age plus 1, age plus 2, age plus 3, age plus 4, age plus 5, age plus 6. And you don't have to type all this, just make sure you understand the concept. Alright, so this will create 6 people. The first one, A, is their name. The second one, B, is their name. The third one, C, is their name. First one, their age would be 27 because this variable up here says 26 and we're adding 1 to that. This would be 28, 29, 30, etc. So then let's say we want to put all these people into this array. The way we could do that is we could say people 0. In code, in most programming languages, the first number will be 0. Things usually start at 0. So keep that in mind. So people 0 would be the first entry in the array, and then we say equals person 1. And then we can say people 1 equals person 2. People 2 equals person 3. People 3 equals person 4. People 4 equals person 5. People 5 equals person 6. And we could also say people 2 equals person 2 or person 4 or whatever we want. We can store the same thing in multiple positions if we want to in this array. But this gives us a convenient way to store this. So this isn't very useful. This is like doing double the work that I was doing before. So the next concept that I'm going to go over is a loop. There are a few different types of loops in Java, and a loop is basically a piece of code that runs anywhere from 0 to an infinite number of times. You don't want it to be infinite in most cases. This main thing here is usually an infinite loop to keep your program running, but we'll get more into that later. So the first type of loop that I'm going to go over is called a for loop. And to create one of those, you type for and then 2 curly braces, or sorry, not 2 curly braces, type for and then 2 parentheses, and then put 2 curly braces after those, and open and close curly brace. And then inside the parentheses, there are a couple different things we can do. And I'm just going to cover one for now, and I'll get to the other one shortly. So the first thing is we can say something like int I equals 0, I is less than 20, I plus plus. So what does this do? This will create a variable called I, which is an integer, and set it to 0 initially. Then, as long as I is less than 20, it will run whatever is inside these 2 curly braces. At the end of each time it reaches this last curly brace, the closing curly brace, it will add 1 to this I variable. Plus plus just means increment by 1. Add 1 to this variable. You could also say I plus equals 1. That would mean the same thing. That means I equals I plus 1. So you're adding 1 to I and then setting I to the result. You could also say I plus equals 10, and that would add 10 to I each time this loop completes one cycle. And if you don't follow this yet, just keep watching and hopefully you'll get it. So in here, rather than declaring all these people this way, instead what I can do is I can say people I equals new person, and then you could have some way of figuring out a name, but for now I'm just going to put person plus I, and then I'm going to put age plus I. And let's see. Why did I get an error here? And cannot be dereferenced. This doesn't make any sense. I typed something wrong. People I equals new person. Everything looks fine. That's interesting. Oh, it's because I typed person and not people. This should be people I equals new person, and then we're just going to calculate the name for now. People plus I, and then this is going to be age plus I, like that. So what this should do is it should say for every single entry in this array until it reaches this number, it will create a new person named people I. Actually, I'm going to change this to people I plus 1. And to have it calculate the I plus 1 and add it first, I put that in parentheses because that takes precedence over concatenating that with this string. And it's going to create the age as the age plus whatever this number is. And then I'm going to do another loop. Down here, this is also a for loop, but instead of doing this type of for loop, where it's based on an expression, a logical expression, I'm going to say for person P, this colon means in people, system.out.println P. And then I'm going to delete this part up here just to get rid of confusion. Excuse me. Alright, so what should this do? This should create people 1 through 19 actually. With, oops, I need an age. I deleted my age. Int age equals 26. Okay, with an age from 26 up to, what is that, 45? Yeah. And then it should print those out. So I'm going to right click on this and go to run. So there you go. That creates a whole bunch of people automatically, and we don't have to type everything. This array is one type of data structure. It can hold a lot of data. It can hold 0 to however many pieces of data that you want it to hold. Alright, for now I'm just going to go over the different types of loops, and I'm going to cover collections and other types of data structures in the next tutorial. So, other than the for loop, there are a couple other types of loops. There's the while loop, and what this will do is this will say while something is true, I'm going to execute whatever is between these two curly braces. So it will run through this, then it'll check whether the thing is true still. It'll run through this again, check whether it's true, run through this, check whether it's true, and keep doing that. So I'm going to put in here, up above this, boolean exit equals false. And then in here, I'm going to put exclamation point exit. So what this will do is exclamation point, when applied to a boolean like this, which is just a true or false value, it means while this expression beside the exclamation point is false, this exclamation point means opposite of this. So if exit is true, the exclamation point would make this statement false. So when it's false, it makes this statement true. So while something is true, do whatever this is. If this is false, it will run whatever the code is. If this is true, it will not, because exclamation point and true equals false. Let me put a comment. Exclamation point true equals false. And equals, by the way, I probably should have mentioned this before, but equals in most programming languages does not mean this equals this, or does this equal this. It means assign this to this variable. This is an assignment operator. To actually check whether something is equal to something else, you use two equal signs. So exclamation point false equals true. So in here I'm going to put while not exit. This literally is interpreted as not. So while I'm not exiting, or maybe I should say exiting, while not exiting, do something in here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, well, first of all, at the top, I'm going to put import java.util.star. So what does this do? This is going to import a Java library, a standard library that's built into the Java programming language, so that I can use its functions, its methods, to do something that I don't want to have to write the logic for. And what I'm going to use here is the scanner class. So I'm going to say scanner scan equals new scanner, and then inside this I'm going to put system.in. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Alright, so this scanner will allow us to get input from the user. So I'm just going to say in here scan dot next, or I can do scan dot next line. That may actually be better. I'm going to do scan dot next line, and I'm going to say string user input equals scan dot next line. Then I'm going to say system dot out dot println. And okay, and then put u input plus, and then I'm going to say user input. Then down here I'm going to do an if. An if checks whether something is true or not. So I can say if and then put parentheses and then two curly braces. And in here I'm going to say if user input dot to lowercase dot equals, and then I'm going to say exit. Then we're going to set exiting to true. Alright. Then right here, we're going to put system.out.println. That's kind of annoying. I don't know when they change that. Exiting. Alright. So what does this do? This will read the next line of input from the user. So the user will type something, hit the enter or return key, and it will store it in this variable, this user input string. It's just some text. Then it will show you what you put in, what you typed. After that, it will check whether what you put in when converted to lowercase letters, whether it is exit or not. So this says if this string, user input, when converted to lowercase, so uppercase is like EXIT like that instead of EXIT like that, this would become this. I'll put a comment right here. To lowercase does this. Alright. It converts that to that. So if somebody puts in exit like that, it will go to that. Or if somebody puts in exit like that, it will also go to that. So it checks whether this is equal to this. So if somebody types exit in any way, it will set this variable to true. So what did we say before? If it's true, then this checks to see if it is true. If it is not true, in other words it's false, it runs. If it is true, then that makes this false, because we're taking the opposite of that because of this not here, the exclamation point. So this gets set to false, which means we will not run this loop again. So we will go down here and it will print out exiting. So if you didn't quite follow all that, you can leave a comment or whatever, or just watch it again and try to get it. But I'm going to save this, and I don't know if NetBeans will let me do the input part, but I'm going to try it. So I'm going to right click and go to run file. Alright, it's doing something. I'm just going to type something here. Test. Okay, yeah, so it does work. So I can type test and it will say you input test. Remember, it goes through, gets the input, prints it out, checks whether it's exit or not, and then exits if I do put exit. So I'm going to put test 2. Test 2. Now I'm going to put exit and it should quit the program. There you go. So you might be thinking, how is this useful? Well, what if instead of creating people this way, I wanted to create people a different way? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in some logic to allow me to create more people than, or people based on a user's input, and we can create more than 6 people. It's not based on some loop or something. Although we were creating 20 here, but they all have weird names and stuff. So what I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to put some more logic. So just pay attention and go back, and I suggest you type the code up yourself so that you can get a firmer grasp of how all this works. It's really better to type it to learn than to just watch somebody do it. Alright, so this can stay the same, but what we might want to do is put in some code to allow you to create a person and then create another person and then create another person and then to exit whenever you want to. So the way we're going to do that, first of all, we're going to change this. Actually, we're going to copy this and just put it one more time right there. And we're going to say name input equals this, all right? And I'm going to change this, actually. I'm going to delete that line, and I'm going to delete this line. And I'm going to say age input equals that, all right? And we'll get to this in a minute. Don't worry about the error. The red underline means that there's an error there. All right, here we're going to print out to the user some useful information about what they should do. So I'm going to put system.out.println. Keeps getting me. I'll get it eventually. And I'm going to just put in here, please enter the name of the person you want to create. All right. And then right here, I'm going to do something similar. And I'm going to say, please enter the name of the person you want to create. Oops, not name actually, age. I want to get the age this time. Age of the person you want to create. All right. And up here, we're going to put some other instructions. We're going to say system.out.println please, actually let's say press about type exit to close I don't know what is up with this thing. It's like can't win. Alright, finally. Type exit to close the program. We'll just leave it like that for now. So what will this do? This will say type exit to close the program. Please enter the name of the person you want to create. And then it will allow you to enter a person's name. Then it will say please enter the age of the person you want to create. It will allow you to enter a person's age. So what does this do exactly? Well, how are we going to use this? We're going to, each time somebody hits enter after they enter the age, we're going to create a person. So I'm going to say person. Actually, we're going to store it in this array. So for one thing, we're going to need a count to keep track of where in the array we're currently storing something. So I'm going to say int I equals, or how about int index equals 0, right? Now I'm going to say if or people index equals new person, and then in here I'm going to give the name, so this is going to be name input, and then I'm going to use the integer class, which starts with an uppercase I and is spelled like this, integer, I-N-T-E-G-E-R, and say dot parse int. So parse integer. That will take a string, because we're getting a string from the user, a bunch of characters, text characters, and it will convert it to an integer number type. So that's what I'm going to do right there. Alright. Now up here though, above this, what if the person types exit so they don't actually want to finish creating the person? Well, for that, what we're going to actually do is create a new method. We're going to say public static boolean should exit, and the parameter for that will be a string, and then we're just going to copy this here and put it here. And then I'm going to put boolean exiting equals, or exit equals false, and then here I'm going to put exit equals true. Alright, so what does this do? This will take in a string from the user, and this should return whether or not the program should exit. So we initially create a boolean and set it to false. That means it should not exit. If the user typed exit though, we want to exit, so we set it to true. Then we're going to return that. So what do we do with this? Well, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to say if should exit can't type today, and then pass in the name input here, and then I'm going to say break. Break will exit this loop, whatever the closest level loop is. You can have a loop within inside a loop. I'll show you more of that later also, but break will exit out of this loop without going through the rest of the code. And you can also do continue, which I'll show you later as well, which will actually not break out of the loop, but it will skip over the code below the continue and start back from the beginning of the loop. But break will exit this loop, so it will end up here. So then I'm going to put this again right here and change this name input to age, just to save some time. I copied and pasted. And so this will go through, tell you you can enter the name of a person, or you can type exit to exit. It will check whether you typed exit. If you did not, it will ask you if you want to enter the name, or tell you to enter the name. You can put in the name. If you didn't type exit for the name, it will create a new person. So then we want to print out all the people you created after you exit. So we're going to do a for loop down here, and we're going to say for person p, or actually we'll just type person, in people system.out.println, and then I'm going to just type person. Remember, this is the same as person.toString, so it will return whatever is defined in our toString method, which, if you remember, is the name and the age in this format. And I'm going to save that off, and then I'm going to run it. Alright, so here's what we get. Type exit to close the program. Please enter the name of the person you want to create. So I'm just going to create Aaron. Please enter the age of the person you want to create. 26. Alright, so now it should have created one person and stored it in the array. Now I want to create another person. I'm going to type Elena, hit enter, and then I'm going to type 26 as the age. Alright. Now I'm going to type Judy, 19, Billy, 43, and Eric. How about we'll give this person a last name? Eric Holder. And he's going to be 107. Now I can type exit, and it will exit the program. So you notice that all of these, it says, are null. Why is that? Except for the first one. The first one, it actually has something. So let's go look. There's a bug. And the bug is that we're leaving this value the same. So it's setting the first value of the array to be whatever the new person is each time. So the first person started off as Aaron, then it was Elena, then it was, I think I put Billy or something, or Judy, and then Billy, and then Eric Holder. So Eric Holder ended up being ultimately the thing that was there. So what we really need to do is right here on the last line, we're going to increment index. And we can either do it by saying index equals index plus 1, or we can say index plus equals 1, or we can say index plus plus. Any of these, all of these mean the exact same thing. But I'm going to put this one because it's shorter and simpler and more efficient. So now I'm going to right click this, run it again, do the same exact thing I just did. Aaron, 26, Elena, 26, Judy, 19, Billy, 43, and Eric Holder, and he's going to be 107. So now it should print out 5 different people. After I type exit, it should print out 5 different people, and there they all are. Everybody that I just created has been stored inside one variable and can be accessed in this way or in another way that I'm about to show you, which is even better in some cases. But they're all stored in this single variable now. I don't have to have a separate variable for each thing, each person object. But notice how it prints out null for every single one of these that I did not store a value for. Null means no value. There's nothing stored in that space. No object. And null is a Java keyword. So I could either do, this, if person, well actually I can't right now. I'll go over that in a little bit actually. But rather than doing this for loop, I'm going to change it and show you something else about arrays. I'm going to say for int c equals 0. This name can be whatever you want, and it doesn't have to be an integer type, and you don't have to set it to 0. But this is probably the most commonly used thing for a for loop of this type, is to type for int I equals 0, and then do some logic in here. I is less than Now I could do the length of this array by doing people.length, and that value is 20. So this would say while I is less than 20 is what that means. But instead of doing that, I'm actually going to use this index, and I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than index I plus plus. System.out.println, and then I'm going to say in here people bracket I. So what does this do? This will get me the person object that is stored at I location in the people array. So people 0 in this case would have been Aaron, people 1 would have been Elena, people 2 would have been Judy, and so forth. So I'm going to save that, right click it, go to run file, and do the same thing I did last time. Aaron 26, and I'll just do 3 this time. Elena 26, Judy 19. Exit. So as you see, now instead of getting a bunch of nulls, I only get this because I know that I only added, 3 people. So I only actually printed out 3 items instead of printing out the rest of the array. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the do while loop. And that looks like this. Do curly brace, closing curly brace, and then after the closing curly brace, put while parentheses semicolon. And this will probably be the least commonly used loop that you use. And above this, I'm just going to create a, I don't know, how about a double? Double D equals 37. And then here I'm going to say while D is greater than or equal to 0. That's what this greater than equal means. Then it's going to do something in here. So I'm just going to say system.out.println number D minus minus. So what this will do is it will print out the number that D is represented by, and then it will check whether or not D is still greater than 0. If it is, it will run this code again. If it's not, then it will exit out of this loop. So the difference between this and this while loop is this while loop will check first, and then it will run all the code that's inside it only if this is true. The do while, on the other hand, will always run the code that's inside it at least once and evaluate this expression after it runs whatever's inside here. So I'm going to do this once. I'm not even going to create any people this time. I'm just going to right click and go to run file, and let me move this up. I'm going to type exit, and you can see that it printed out 37 all the way to 0 because I decreased the D every time it went through the loop, and I printed out the value of D. Remember, D is just a decimal number. It's a double. And I could also do just to show you some more of the operators, I could do d divide equals 2, or how about d minus minus and then d divide equals 2. So what will this do? This will say d equals d divided by 2. But that's only after it subtracts 1 from d. So let's see what this does. Oops, typing in the wrong place. Exit. So that subtracts 1, which would take it to 36. Then it divides it by 2, which would bring it to 18. Then it subtracts 1 again, which takes it to 17. Divides by 2, that's 8.5. Subtracts 1, that's 4.5. Divides by, subtracts 1, that's 7.5, Then divides by 2, that's 3.75, and so on and so forth until it gets down to 0. And you can also do d star equals 1.5. That will multiply d by 1.5. So you see here, you get all these weird numbers. Alright. So the most basic math operators, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction, look like this. Here's addition, subtraction, multiplication, I don't know why I'm putting semicolons, I don't really need them for comments. Divide, division is /. And then you can use plus plus to add 1 and minus minus to subtract 1. These, though, you cannot do the same thing with those, because what do? You're not dividing by 1 or multiplying by 1. That gives you the same value. So that's just special for these. I just figured I would go over those while we're looking at this. Alright, so that's loops and arrays. Basic example of how to use arrays and loops. And we'll be using a lot more of both, I'm sure, in the future tutorials. So don't worry too much if you don't fully understand the concepts yet. Just try to get your head around some of them, so it won't be completely new to you when we do discuss it more. Alright, that is it for this tutorial. Thanks. Bye.